Hello and welcome and namaste from New Delhi. You're watching DD India Newshour. I'm Gautam Roy. Coming up over the next 1 hour. Donald Trump rolls out fresh tariffs ranging from 10 to 41%, targeting 90 countries, including India, Brazil and Canada. Tank stock markets in Asia, Europe and the US. Nasdaq opens 1.5% lower. India reaffirms the strength and resilience of ties with the US in face of its president's 25% tariff announcement, says the relationship has weathered many transitions and challenges. US Middle East envoy Steve Witkoff visits a controversial Israel and US-backed aid distribution site in Gaza for the first time, days after multiple reports of deadly shootings at such spots. And Rani Mukherjee for Mrs. Chatterjee vs. Norway, as well as Shah Rukh Khan for Jawan, win their first National Film Awards. SRK shares its Best Actor honour with Vikrant Messi for 12 Fail. Donald Trump unleashed a revised executive order on reciprocal tariffs on Friday aimed at 90 nations, including BRICS founders India and Brazil. The latest rates put as many as 39 countries in the 15% bracket, but also slapped 35% on Canada, as much as 41% on Syria, tanking global markets. There's also data emerging now that these duties on American imports are now beginning to hike prices of consumer goods in the US. Take a look.
It was a blandly titled White House statement, further modifying the reciprocal tariff rates on Friday, which announced Donald Trump's decision to impose fresh tariffs on 90 nations. While higher tariffs have been paused for Mexico for 90 days by the US president, India faces 25%, Brazil 50%, and Switzerland 39% in another week. The levy for Canada will also go up from 25 to 35% on all products not covered by the US-Mexico-Canada trade agreement.
Well, they have to pay a fair rate. It's very simple. They have been charging very, very high tariffs to our farmers, some over 200%. And they've been treating our farmers very badly. They've been treating our country very badly for years.
Overall, the tariffs fall in a range of 10 to 41%. Those included in 10% are the Falkland Islands, United Kingdom, and all other countries not listed in the executive order. In the 15% category are as many as 39 nations, making up the largest group among the 90 countries. These include Afghanistan, Bolivia, Costa Rica, Israel, Japan, Jordan, Norway, Turkey, Venezuela, and more. Nicaragua is the only nation in the 18% slot. Cambodia, Indonesia, Malaysia, Pakistan, and the Philippines are in the 19% slot. Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Thailand, Taiwan, Vietnam are in the 20% category. India, Brunei, Kazakhstan, Moldova, and Tunisia are in the 25% category. Algeria, Bosnia, Libya, South Africa are being tariffed 30%. Iraq and Serbia have got 35%. Switzerland has been slapped with 39%, Laos and Myanmar 40%, and Syria 41%. There are some glaring exclusions, such as China, which is still in the middle of negotiations with a 12th of August deadline. Goods from the European Union would be tariffed in a range of 0 to 15%. Brazil's 50% rate excludes some key imports. The latest rates kick in from the 7th of August, but they tanked European stocks to 3-week lows on Friday. The pan-European stocks 600 index fell around 1% in early trading, down for the third straight session and on track to end the week in red. In India, the BSE Sensex shed 585.67 points or 0.72% to close at 80,599.91, while the NSE Nifty slipped 203 points or 0.82% to settle at 24,565.35. Trump's fresh tariff rollout has also come with more evidence that it has begun driving up consumer goods prices. US Commerce Department data released Thursday showed prices for home furnishings and durable household equipment jumped 1.3% in June, the biggest gain since March 2022. Recreational goods and vehicle prices shot up 0.9%, the most since February 2024. Prices for clothing and footwear also rose 0.4%. Bureau Report, DD India.
And trade partners reacted to the US President's executive order, which would levy new tariffs on many of them in 7 days, as the global economy and alliances face another Trump test. Several countries are pushing for talks to clinch better deals, whereas many others are chalking out plans to support their exporters and diversify their markets. Here's more in this report.
US President Donald Trump's latest flurry of tariffs has rekindled global trade tensions. Countries across the globe are busy strategizing policies to safeguard their national interests. Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva has vowed to combat US President Trump's 50% tariffs on its exports and defend his country's sovereignty.
I will participate in a meeting to defend the sovereignty of the Brazilian people in the face of measures announced by the President of the United States.
Trump's 30% tariffs on South Africa have disrupted its car exports to the US, with one industry body calling it a socio-economic crisis in the making. South Africa's central bank has estimated that the latest Trump tariff could cause 100,000 job losses, mainly in the agriculture and automotive sector. In this backdrop, the government is finalizing a support package for vulnerable exporters. President Cyril Ramaphosa said his administration will use the week-long delay in American imposition of 30% tariffs to find a way to settle this matter.
Negotiations with the United States are continuing. And let's be clear, South Africa is not the only country that is dealing with this crisis. And many other countries, some of which are in a much worse situation than we are. Many of our companies deal with the United States customers.
Swiss manufacturers warned on Friday that tens of thousands of jobs were at risk after President Trump hit Switzerland with 39% tariff. Switzerland's foreign minister said his country will continue to strive for an agreement with the US. Canada's Prime Minister Mark Carney expressed disappointment as US raised tariffs on Canadian goods from 25 to 35%. Taiwan President Lai Ching-te said the new 20% tariff rate set by the Trump administration on goods imported from the island is provisional, and the government expects a negotiated lower figure.
So far, the negotiations have achieved some interim progress. The tax rate has been reduced from 32% to 20%. However, the 20% tariff rate was never Taiwan's target to begin with. We will continue negotiations and strive for a rate that's more favorable for Taiwan.
However, there are also countries like Thailand and Cambodia which have welcomed the new US tariffs. On the other hand, China warned on Friday that protectionism harms the interests of all parties and there is no winner in a tariff or trade war. Bureau Report, DD India.
And US employment growth slowed more than expected in July, while the non-farm payrolls count for the prior 2 months was revised down by a massive 258,000 jobs. This pointed to a deterioration in labor market conditions that puts a September interest rate cut by the Federal Reserve back on the table. The Labor Department's closely watched employment report on Friday also showed the unemployment rate rose to 4.2% last month amid a decline in the volatile household employment segment. Job growth has slowed amid uncertainty over where President Donald Trump's tariff levels will eventually settle. Meanwhile, Trump has issued a stern warning to top pharmaceutical companies, urging action to address the high cost of prescription drugs in the US within 60 days. In a series of letters shared on Truth Social on Thursday, Trump revealed he had contacted 17 major drug makers including Pfizer, GSK, Eli Lilly, Regeneron, Merck and Novo Nordisk. Trump's message follows his May executive order reviving a controversial plan called the Most Favored Nation policy. Under this plan, the prices of certain prescription medicines in the US would be tied to much lower prices in other developed countries. Trump said if the companies fail to act, he would deploy every tool in his arsenal to protect American families from continued abusive drug pricing practices. And Trump is also launching one of the largest construction projects at the White House in more than a century. It's a massive 90,000 square foot ballroom set to host official state events and receptions. The $20 million project, funded by Trump and private donors, will begin in September and replace the East Wing. The neoclassical structure will seat up to 650 guests and mirror the White House's iconic facade. Trump, known for his opulent tastes, says the ballroom will reflect his signature style, drawing inspiration from his properties like Mar-a-Lago and Turnberry, and be completed before the end of his second term in 2029. Now, in 2025, Donald Trump's vision of making Gaza the Riviera of the Middle East is fading as the region faces a growing humanitarian crisis. A global hunger monitor has warned of a potential famine, and malnutrition is rising rapidly. Despite international food aid, Gaza residents continue to struggle, and Trump's Middle East envoy Steve Witkoff witnessed all of it for the first time on Friday firsthand. DD India's Mihir Mekuri has the details.
The year 2025 began with President Trump's dream of making Gaza the Riviera of the Middle East.
I don't want to be cute. I don't want to be a wise guy, but the Riviera of the Middle East, this could be something that could be so bad. This could be so magnificent.
But today, the dream is fast fading. A global hunger monitor says a famine scenario is unfolding in the Gaza Strip. And Trump, he has just one thing to say.
It's a terrible thing. People are very hungry. You know, the United States gave $60 million for food, and it's a shame because nobody, I don't see the results of it.
With humanitarian access tightly restricted, malnutrition is skyrocketing. Locals walk for miles just to reach aid points, only to scramble for a bag of food. On Friday, Trump's envoy to the Middle East, Steve Witkoff, inspected food aid distribution in Gaza. At the site, a Gazan man had a message for him and for the world.
I sent a message to US officials and to Witkoff. End these things completely. Stop the war entirely and open the crossings so we can live like the other countries out there. Let our children live. We don't want aid here. We come and get humiliated and shot at. We are humiliated just for a loaf of bread. This is not a life. This is not living. We want everyone to make concessions and bring peace.
Humanitarian help is pouring in from other countries of the world. Spain has dropped 12 tons, France 40 on Friday, while the UAE has dropped over 3,700 tons of food and supplies into Gaza over the last 5 days. Israel maintains that it has no intention to starve Gaza, forcefully rejecting accusations of genocide. Meanwhile, international momentum for recognizing the state of Palestine is building. More countries are stepping forward to recognize the state of Palestine. On Wednesday, the Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney announced that Canada will back Palestinian statehood at the United Nations this September.
Canada intends to recognize the state of Palestine at the 80th session of the United Nations General Assembly in September 2025. This intention is predicated on the Palestinian Authority's commitment to much-needed reforms, including commitments by the Palestinian Authority's President Abbas to fundamentally reform its governance.
From bold promises to bare survival, Gaza today stands at a crossroads. What remains to be seen is whether global resolve can match the urgency on the ground. Mihir Mekuri's report, DD India.
And still to come in this edition of DD India Newshour. Russian President Vladimir Putin says he wants lasting peace in Ukraine. And DRC and Rwanda hold first talks after peace deal to end long-standing conflict in the mineral-rich region.
Geopolitics and trade deals. Economic challenges amid development. Hard work and the path to prosperity. It's the economy, always. Between walkers, money is what money does and says. Supply creates its own demand. Between the bulls pulls and bears tears. When supply chains globalization and India rises to the podium. We'll get you centered with the Economic Brief at 8 p.m. every Thursday on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Newshour. I'm Gautam Roy. Now, amid ongoing hostilities, Russian President Vladimir Putin has expressed hope for continued peace talks with Ukraine. Berlin will supply Kyiv with much-needed Patriot launchers as aerial assaults on Ukraine cities intensified. In fact, drone strikes were the highest ever in July this year.
Russian President Vladimir Putin on Friday expressed hope that peace talks with Ukraine would continue. Putin indicated that working groups could discuss possible compromises but stressed that Moscow's military objective remained unchanged. He also said any negotiations must be held without media glare in a calm, confidential setting.
Negotiations are always in demand and always important, especially if it is a desire for peace. We have agreed that we can conduct such negotiations without cameras and without any political crackle in a calm mode and look for compromises.
Responding to it, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky repeated his willingness to sit down with Putin. He stressed that Ukraine wants to move beyond statements. Ukrainian president has, however, renewed calls for stronger international sanctions against Moscow. This comes after a Russian drone attack on Kyiv that has left at least 31 people dead. The attack flattened an apartment complex and caused serious damage to a hospital, school, university and nursery. A day of mourning was declared in Kyiv. In response, Ukraine is pushing for more military support, particularly air defense systems. Germany on Friday announced the delivery of 2 additional US-made Patriot missile systems to Ukraine in the coming days. US President Donald Trump strongly condemned Russia's action in Ukraine. He hinted a new sanction against Moscow and announced a 10 to 12-day deadline for Russia to agree to a ceasefire.
Yeah, we're going to put sanctions. I don't know that sanctions bother him. You know, they know about sanctions. I know better than anybody about sanctions and tariffs and everything else. I don't know if that has any effect, but we're going to do it. Europe is extremely upset. But this is a war that should have never happened. This is a war that wouldn't have happened if I were president.
Kiev and Moscow have held 3 rounds of peace talks in Istanbul this year. These discussions led to exchanges of prisoners and bodies, but failed to bring any significant breakthrough in the 3-year-long conflict. With agency inputs, Prasar Bharati's report for DD India.
Now, taking a step towards implementing a peace deal agreed last month in the US, the first meeting of the Joint Oversight Committee for the Peace Agreement between the Democratic Republic of Congo and the Republic of Rwanda was held on Thursday in Washington, D.C. With 7 million people displaced in Congo, the UN calls it one of the most complex, serious humanitarian crises in the world.
A peace agreement brokered by the White House to stem the bloodshed in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo, or DRC, was signed in Washington, D.C. on June 27th by officials of the 2 African nations. African Union, Qatar, and the United States attended the meeting of the committee in Washington. The Central African nation of Congo has been racked by conflict with more than 100 armed groups, the most potent backed by Rwanda, that have killed millions since the 1990s. The conflict traces its roots to the end of Rwandan genocide in 1994, when Hutu extremists fled to the DRC and continued their attacks on Rwanda's Tutsis. The Rwandan response led to the First and Second Congo Wars, during which the DRC accused Rwanda of targeting Hutu civilians and looting Congo's resources.
The Rwanda-backed M23 rebel group is the most prominent armed group in the conflict, and its major advance early this year left bodies on the streets. The US played a key role in ending the conflict, but its commitment might depend on how much access it has to the minerals being discussed under separate negotiations between the American and Congolese governments. The mostly untapped minerals are estimated to be worth as much as $24 trillion by the US Department of Commerce. DRC will attract billions of dollars of Western investment to a region rich in tantalum, gold, cobalt, copper, lithium, and other minerals. With 7 million people displaced in Congo, the United Nations has called it one of the most protracted, complex, serious humanitarian crises on earth. Bureau Report, DD India.
Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan on Friday hosted a mini summit in Istanbul with the Prime Ministers of Italy and Libya's UN-recognized government for talks on several issues including migration. At the meeting, Erdogan said it was important to cooperate in addressing the challenges faced by the Mediterranean basin, including irregular migration movements. Libya has been gripped by unrest since 2011 and is a hub of tens of thousands of migrants trying to reach Europe. At the Istanbul talks, Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni discussed a series of options to combat international criminal networks of human traffickers, better prevent irregular movements, and support Libya in managing the migratory pressure it is under, according to a statement issued by her office. Britain and 13 allies, including the United States and France, have condemned what they have called a surge in assassinations, kidnappings and harassment plots by Iranian intelligence services targeting individuals in Europe and North America. The governments of Albania, Austria, Belgium, Canada, Czechia, Denmark, Finland, France, Germany, the Netherlands, Spain, Sweden, the UK and the US called on the Iranian authorities to immediately stop such illegal activities. They said such actions were increasingly carried out in collaboration with international criminal networks. Iran's foreign ministry rejected the accusations as blatant fabrications and a diversionary tactic. The European Court of Justice has set out tough conditions for governments to declare migrants as countries of origin as safe for return. The decision potentially complicates Italy's efforts to process asylum seekers in offshore centers in Albania. In a statement, Prime Minister Meloni called the court ruling surprising and said it weakens policies to combat mass illegal immigration and defend national borders. The case is based on a complaint from two Bangladeshis who were rescued in the Mediterranean and taken to Albania. Now, Qatar was Germany's way out of the energy crisis it found itself after the Ukraine conflict broke out in 2022. The two countries inked a deal of LNG deliveries starting in 2026. Now, Qatar has threatened to halt delivery over a battle on an EU directive that wants to improve ethical standards of global trade. For more on why Qatar is so irked and what Germany can do, we're joined by DW's Vada Imran from Berlin. Hi Vada, tell us about this EU directive and why it had received such a response from Qatar.
Thanks for having me. So it's actually a new EU accountability law that was adopted last year, and its aim is to fix global supply chains. That means ensuring that no unethical practices occur from the raw material stage to the finished product. Now, unethical practices like potential environmental harm or human rights abuses or child labor should be avoided throughout the whole production process. This directive also pushes companies to make climate transition plans with the Paris Agreement. Now, this is what the EU wants, and it's included it in the Accountability Directive. And that is a lot to take in for energy-heavy Qatar. Doha says that this particular directive goes beyond objectives set in the Paris Agreement and that high fines and penalties will be a big risk for Qatar Energy, which is the world's biggest LNG producer. And so it threatened to pull the plug on planned LNG deliveries.
And Vada, how important is LNG and Qatar for Germany's energy needs as well as security?
So back in 2022, Europe was scrambling to look for alternatives to Russia's gas for its energy needs. So the deal to import 2 million tons of LNG from Qatar was really important for Germany, which had some of the biggest energy prices in the last decade. Deals inked at the time in 2022, like this one with Qatar, were lifelines for Germany and would help the country fill energy gaps and keep prices down. If Qatar, for any reason, and especially due to this accountability directive, can't supply to Germany anymore, this would definitely be a big blow.
Wada Imran, thank you for joining us from Berlin. Let's now take a look at some other stories making news around the world as well. An Estonian theatre group, Kino Theater, has given Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet a mechanical twist. Staged in a quarry near Tallinn, the production Romula ya Julia featured 16 excavators, trucks and rally vehicles portraying the star-crossed lovers and warring families. Juliet is a red Ford pickup, Romeo a rally truck, and duels are fought with excavator arms in this bold industrial retelling. Seems like it's all about crashing and burning in love. Now, in a delightful twist on British nostalgia, celebrated felt artist Lucy Sparrow has unveiled her latest immersive installation, a classic London fish and chip shop recreated entirely from felt. From crispy golden fish and chunky chips to tartar sauce sachets, every detail of the traditional chippy has been lovingly handmade using fabric, felt and thread. Farmers in central southern Hungary's key agricultural area are grappling with increasingly severe drought as climate change cuts crop yields and reduces groundwater levels, with some considering relocating or alternative employment. Scientists have warned that rising temperatures and insufficient rainfall are threatening agricultural viability. British police arrested 10 men over historical child sexual abuse allegations in northern England on Friday. The allegations relate to offences which are reported to have occurred between 1994 and 1997 and relate to 6 victims who were aged 13 to 15 at that time. And still to come on DD India Newshour. We'll be speaking with our expert guests about Donald Trump's latest tariff barrage and how different countries, including India, are tackling it. And India's Election Commission has announced date for the Vice President's election. Also, Prime Minister Narendra Modi is set to visit Varanasi on Saturday to unveil many developmental projects.
Can the US launch a bombing campaign against Iran? The Philippines vessel suffered structural damage. The saga of child sexual abuse is the United States China's debt trap strategy. Truth is stranger than fiction. But sometimes hard to uncover. Trust us to tell the truth, unadulterated and pure, of every story that matters to you.
That's exactly what save your country.
You read between the lines, cut the clutter, and connect the dots to get you the full picture. Watch Connecting the Dots at these times with me, only on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Newshour. I'm Gautam Roy, and before we go any further, another look at our top stories. Donald Trump rolls out fresh tariffs ranging from 10 to 41%, targeting 90 countries including India, Brazil and Canada. Tank stock markets in Asia, Europe and the US. Nasdaq opens 1.5% lower. India reaffirms the strength and resilience of ties with the US in face of its president's 25% tariff announcement. Says the relationship has weathered many transitions and challenges. And Rani Mukherjee for Mrs. Chatterjee vs. Norway, as well as Shah Rukh Khan for Jawan, win their first National Film Awards. SRK shares his Best Actor honour with Vikrant Messi for 12th Fail. Now, India's Ministry of External Affairs has said on Friday that relationship between India and the US has withstood various transitions and challenges over time. The spokesperson of the MEA said that India and the US share a comprehensive global strategic partnership rooted in shared interests, democratic values and strong people-to-people ties. The spokesperson also added that India has steady and time-tested partnership with Russia. Take a look.
A day after US President Donald Trump announced reciprocal tariffs, India's Ministry of External Affairs reaffirmed the country's approach in shaping its foreign policy, energy decisions and defense strategies. On the question of energy procurement, the ministry noted that the government remains driven by current market offerings and international developments.
The sourcing of our energy needs, we are guided by what is available in the markets and by prevailing global circumstances.
The Ministry of External Affairs also highlighted that India-US partnership has navigated several transitions and challenges in the past and expressed confidence in the relationship moving forward.
India and the United States share a comprehensive global strategic partnership anchored in shared interests, democratic values and robust people-to-people ties. This partnership has weathered several transitions and challenges. We remain focused on the substantive agenda that the two countries have committed to and are confident that the relationship will continue to move forward.
Commenting on security ties, the ministry confirmed that defense cooperation with the United States has grown significantly in recent years. Replying to another question, the spokesperson of the Ministry of External Affairs said that India's partnership with Russia is time-tested.
Our ties with any country, or all the ties that we have with various countries, they stand on their own merit and they should not be seen from the prism of a third country. As far as India-Russia relations are concerned, we have a steady and time-tested partnership.
The ministry made it clear that India's defense procurement decisions are shaped entirely by national interest. Bureau Report, DD India.
So let's talk about how India and many other countries, in fact 90 of them, against whom fresh tariff levels have been announced today by Donald Trump in an executive order tackling this challenge. We're joined by our eminent guest, Prabhu Dayal, joins us from San Francisco. He's a former senior diplomat, and we're also joined by Dr. Charan Singh, eminent economist, and CEO EGRO, both joining us remotely. Good evening to you. First to you, Ambassador Dayal, what do you make of India's response to Donald Trump's reciprocal tariffs?
Well, first of all, let me mention that Donald Trump has been making very, very offensive remarks against a whole lot of countries. But people have learned to live with that because of the fact that bilateral relations outlive presidents who are in authority at any particular time. So India-US relations will also outlive any sort of remarks by President Trump. He has said that India's tariffs have been obnoxious, and he has referred to the Indian economy as a dead economy. Now, these are things which he has perhaps said on the spur of the moment, and the government of India has said the right thing by pointing out that India's ties with the United States are time-tested and will continue to grow from strength to strength. You know, the US has a strong interest in the Indian market. Firstly, in the defense sector, because of the fact that India is the world's largest importer of defense equipment and the United States is the world's largest exporter. They want to export more and more defense equipment to us. We, of course, want to buy American equipment, but we also want them to do what is called transfer of technology, because our focus is on Make in India. We want weapons ultimately which are imported to be manufactured here. and the American defense industry is resisting. Then, of course, there is this issue of the agricultural and dairy sectors. Trump wants India to open them, and he's been exerting the maximum amount of pressure. He's been saying a lot of strong things because he wants India to wilt under pressure. But India has made it very clear that we have to protect our interests, and our interests include, of course, the interests of the Indian farming sector. Opening up to agricultural products and dairy products would severely hurt these sections, and therefore we are resisting. So, nonetheless, I think that while there will be some impact of the Trump tariffs on our exports to the United States, but nonetheless, we will adjust. And I think the important thing is that we are still continuing with our talks with the United States. The next round is scheduled for the end of August, and hopefully these things will be sorted out, though the sticking points which I mentioned continue to remain in the trade negotiations. But as I said, the trade negotiations are just one aspect. The bilateral relationship is much, much more comprehensive.
Certainly. Let me bring in Dr. Charan Singh. Dr. Charan Singh, we'll talk about the impact as well of this 25% tariff that's been announced in the case of India. But what do you make of how India has reacted? There's no panic, clearly, because markets are not panicking. We don't see the government people, the higher echelons of the government panicking either in front of the media's cameras or making frantic calls to White House.
Strong economy, and it is growing from strength to strength. It's not an easy thing the way we have tackled poverty. It's not easy the way we handled COVID. And it's also not easy the way we handled after the Russia-Ukraine war, what happened in the Western world with their interest rates, the way we have handled that situation. Our fiscal position is strong. Foreign exchange reserves are strong. We are the fastest growing large economy in the world. We are still attracting FDI. We have a very large workforce in terms of young demographic Indians. We also have democratic values. In IT, we are the strongest. Our public digital infrastructure is globally well known. There is nothing to panic. We have a large economy at our own end, which is prosperous. In the hinterlands, lots of prosperity has taken place. We will be able to absorb any shock. As far as the Trump tariff announcement is concerned, Trump is a businessman. He has done hard negotiations throughout his life. Even in his first term, he was negotiating hard. And then 4 to 6 months later, he settles down. It's a strategy to strike the best in any deal. I think one has to visualize it from that angle. The diplomat who was speaking to before me has rightly said that this is a strategy. And he is a hard bargainer. Also, please remember, in America, if you look at the long-term situation, it is not doing very well. The debt to GDP ratio is high. Their growth is half of what it was in the previous year. Of course, in the last quarter, Chairman Powell just released a statement. Growth was 3%, but in aggregate, it is around 1.3 compared to 2.5 in the 6 months of the last year. So this year, that's also not very good. If you look at the international investment position of the US, one is not sure about the liabilities and assets, but it's not very good either. So debt is not very good. International position is not very good. Thirdly, the type of competition which America is facing from Asian countries, both India, especially from China, is also very intense. So he has his own constituency to play to. So there could be various reasons why he has used these harsh words that he has used, like a dead economy and things like that, and then leaving tariffs. He wants to correct the deficits which America has. That is fine and fair. My only point is, when you are such a large economy, accounting for 25% of world GDP, when you are such a large economy, you also have some responsibilities. An emerging country like India, which is growing, I think one has to be far more considerate, keeping in mind the long-term relationship that has happened. India has a cherished democratic value, as do Americans have. Many Indians educated in Indian universities are doing exceedingly well in America and adding to the prosperity and well-being of America. I think that one has to always, the diaspora in America is doing extremely well and contributing to the economic growth of the
Yes,
US
certainly.
and
Certainly.
US. So
Let's
keeping
let's
these
not
things
talk
in
about
mind,
the overall steps that Donald Trump has taken. In fact, these tariffs that have been announced against 90 countries, it's already impacting. We've seen the markets. There's the unemployment data that has come in as well, Ambassador Prabhudyal, and also the fact that now the impact on consumer good prices is also beginning to show. The prices have begun to creep up. Do you feel Donald Trump will persist with this, and we will not have the taco scenario being repeated a little later down the line?
No, consumer prices are going up here in America, and there are growing concerns about how the tariffs which Trump is imposing are going to impact the price line. Now, for instance, as regards India, the United States imports a variety of goods from India, including pharmaceuticals, gems and jewelry, chemicals, textiles, a lot of agricultural goods, textiles, leather goods, machinery parts, tea, rice, spices. Now, in addition, there are high-tech items also. You know, Bloomberg has reported that now India has become the top source of smartphones to the United States. Because earlier they were manufactured in China, but Apple shifted the manufacturing base to India to a great extent. And so the largest number of Apple phones which are coming into America are from India. They're manufactured by Apple in India. Now, if the tariffs are imposed, the consumers in America are going to be hit. And I must tell you that there are fears of a recession. And some lawsuits have been filed in case courts here against the tariffs because of the fact that people feel that businesses will slump. Businessmen are very concerned, and the consumers too. So there is anxiety here. Now, Professor Charan Singh Saab was very correct in saying that regardless of what Trump has said about our economy, we are one of the fastest growing economies in the world. And in fact, the Commerce Minister himself pointed out in Parliament that from being one of the fragile five, we have moved to the status where we are among the biggest five. And in fact, we are moving towards becoming the number 4 economy because we are poised to overtake Japan. So regardless of what Donald Trump says, there are realistic matters which have to be factored in, and he must realize the concerns in the United States. And by name calling India and saying that it's a dead economy, it doesn't really help the American cause. He has to negotiate, he has to be realistic. India cannot yield on the sticking points, particularly agriculture and dairy, because our farming sector will be impacted. There are also reports that the agricultural crops are genetically modified, and there are questions about how they could impact human beings. There are already some reports that there are adverse effects. Then there are also reports that animal content is included in the animal feed, which is fed to cattle. And this would not be acceptable to a large number of Indians who are Hindus and who have cultural, association with the cow. They do not want to be having milk products or dairy products in which animal feed has been included. So there are many factors, and we have been trying to point out to the United States that the sticking points are important for us, and they should not just indulge and try to bamboozle their way and bulldoze us into accepting India is not going to accept US terms.
Let me bring in Dr. Charan Singh now. Dr. Charan Singh, regardless of whatever pressure might come to bear on Donald Trump due to factors from within or even from other international sources, India has to prepare itself, gird itself up, so to speak, to the scenario that these tariffs might remain. It may not work out with Donald Trump, with the kind of position that is taken and with the kind of things that India has to consider as well. So how does India then ensure that whatever is a shortfall in terms of its exports to the US is made up, in terms of finding alternative markets, or somehow Indian companies are taken care of? They've already talked about more PLI or some other form of support from the government. Do you think these are all steps that could be considered?
You know what? I'm least worried. I'll tell you the reason. We are the only country in the world which is chasing a Viksit Bharat dream. Can you imagine 22 years ahead, we are already planning and thinking? It's just coincidental that the Prime Minister 2 months back and Niti Aayog has made a clarion call to all the states. Please join me as a team. We want to take India onto Viksit Bharat strategy, Viksit Bharat trajectory, and Viksit Bharat path. Many states have already planned and come out with their documents. So we are concentrated on and focused on economic growth, and nothing can deter us from that. And you have seen we had a problem with the neighbor, we did our job, and back to our growth strategy. We don't want to be distracted at all. Now, given the fact that India is on a growth trajectory, and Prime Minister clearly said and delineated where are the areas where we need to grow. Pharma, of course, is not coming under the tariff story, and it is so we have lots of scope there. We have a demographic dividend, so skilling and MSME. And MSME, I have always suggested that after agriculture, MSMEs has a great potential to employ our youth and provide opportunities. The third point is tourism. India is a great country. It has snow-filled mountains. It has rivers, lakes, and ocean beaches. So we have great opportunity. We have also great opportunity in terms of religious tourism and medical tourism. All types of medical systems prevail in India, and all of them excel. Take it modern medicine, we have all India institutes. Take it allopathic, or take it Ayurvedic, or take it homeopathic, or just take the breathing exercises. We have all of it here. So medical tourism is another area where we can do very well. The third is we have built a reputation and built bridges in the global south. So in case we have problems in one side of the market, we can easily diversify it into global south because they are our friends and we have worked with them, and there's a team spirit. Also, the Prime Minister also makes it a point. And after Operation Sindoor, we have gone and spoken to 32 countries. Of course, that was a security issue. We can now enrich and strengthen the same relationship into trade. Now, this is not only with India, it's happening across the spectrum.
Yes.
So there are many countries who are going to be friendly with us, understand our situation, and not only our situation is a pity, but are willing to cooperate and coordinate with us. So I think there's nothing to worry at all.
Let's see if Donald Trump gets that message. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Charan Singh, as well as Ambassador Prabhu Dayal, to talk about what's been happening on the global trade front, where, of course, India is also been embroiled in this tariff barrage that Donald Trump has launched. Thank you for joining us. Now, Prime Minister Modi is set to visit his parliamentary constituency Varanasi in Uttar Pradesh on the 2nd of August, which is Saturday, to inaugurate and lay foundation stones of multiple infrastructure and developmental projects valued at around 2,200 crore Indian rupees. The projects aimed at boosting connectivity, urban development and public amenities in the region are part of ongoing efforts to transform Varanasi into a smart and sustainable city, spanning sectors such as infrastructure, education, healthcare, tourism, cultural heritage and urban development, with key highlights including road and power upgrades, riverfront and beautification of 21 parks, 47 drinking water schemes under Jal Jeevan Mission, enhanced school and hospital facilities. And India's Ministry of External Affairs on Friday has strongly criticized the British Parliamentary Committee report, which accuses India of engaging in transnational repression activities in the UK, saying that these claims are completely baseless. Categorically rejecting the UK Parliamentary Committee report, India's Ministry of External Affairs spokesperson has said, and I quote, "We have seen the references to India in the report and categorically reject these baseless allegations. These claims stem from unverified and dubious sources, predominantly linked to proscribed entities and individuals with a clear documented history of anti-India hostility. The deliberate reliance on discredited sources calls into question the credibility of the report itself." Now, the monsoon session of Parliament is underway in Delhi. On Friday, the Parliament session saw a complete washout, with opposition parties continuing their protests on the special intensive review of the electoral roll in Bihar. The protest and sloganeering continued on the floor of both the houses, which led to repeated adjournments of both the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha. The Speaker of the lower house and Deputy Chairperson of the upper house requested repeatedly the opposition's members to go back to their seats or benches for a smooth conduct of business in the houses, but they did not relent. And due to repeated protests, both the houses were adjourned for the day around 2 p.m. to reconvene at 11 a.m. on Monday. Both the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha have lost precious time of business due to the ongoing protests. Now, the election for the post of Vice President will take place on the 9th of September and counting will be held on the same day. The Election Commission of India has said on Friday that the polls for the 17th Vice Presidential position will be notified on the 7th of August and the last date for filing nomination papers will be the 21st. The Vice President is elected by members of the Electoral College consisting of members of both Houses of Parliament. For 2025, the Electoral College consists of 233 elected members of the Rajya Sabha, 12 nominated members of again the upper house and 543 elected members of the Lok Sabha. Now, in a vibrant celebration of India's handloom heritage, the National Crafts Museum and Hastkala Academy, in association with the Fashion Design Council of India and India Art Fair, inaugurated a special exposition titled Contemporary Indigenous and Textiles of India in New Delhi on Friday. The event also launched the Know Your Weaves campaign, marking National Handloom Day 2025. Gracing the occasion as chief guest was Neelam Shami Rao, Secretary, Ministry of Textiles, the Government of India. The showcase, held at the Innovation Gallery of the National Crafts Museum in New Delhi, highlighted India's rich and diverse textile traditions while promoting sustainable indigenous craftsmanship.
हस्तकर का दिवस जो कि 7 तारीख को मनाया जाने वाला है, उस कार्यक्रम को शुरुआत की गई है आज के दिन नो योर व्यूज कार्यक्रम के माध्यम से। यह इस कार्यक्रम का तीसरा संस्करण है, जबकि हम अपने जो हमारी आगे की पीढ़ी है, नई पीढ़ी है, यानी कि स्कूली छात्र छात्राओं, कॉलेज में जाने वाले छात्र छात्राओं के लिए कार्यक्रम की शुरुआत करते हैं इस क्राफ्ट म्यूजियम में नो योर व्यूज के माध्यम से।
The winners of the 71st edition of the National Film Awards have been announced in New Delhi on Friday. The list of awards honors actors, technicians and regional masterpieces from the world of cinema. From Shah Rukh Khan, Vikrant Massey and Rani Mukherjee to regional films like Hanuman and Parking, many secured top spots at the 71st National Film Awards. Take a look.
The award winners of the 71st edition of National Film Awards were announced on Friday, the 1st of August in New Delhi for the year 2023 that honored films, actors and technicians from across the country. Ahead of this announcement, the jury members submitted the list of award winners of the 71st edition for the year 2023 to the Union Minister for Information and Broadcasting, Ashwini Vaishnaw. Union Minister of State L. Murugan and Secretary of Ministry of Information and Broadcasting, Sanjay Jaju, were also present on the occasion. Divided into various categories, the jury had to take a tough call from around 115 films under non-feature category, whereas the jury watched around 332 films under the feature film category in order to pick the best ones for the prestigious and most coveted film awards in the country. Talking about the 71st edition of National Film Awards, chairperson of the feature film jury, Ashutosh Kuvarikar, thanked all the jury members and talked about the process and criteria of selecting the films.
It's been close to a month now since we've been watching some of the best films of 2023. The common adage is that no two films or talent can ever be compared to each other. All stand as an independent piece of work, art and craft. So amazing talent across all the departments. And therefore, we applaud all, but we salute the following selected ones.
Hindi film 12th Fail remained under the spotlight, bagging the Best Feature Film award. Shah Rukh Khan and Vikrant Massih has been adjudged as Best Actor in Leading Role for the film Jawan and 12th Fail respectively. Bollywood actress Rani Mukherjee bagged the Best Actress award in Leading Role for the film Mrs. Chatterjee vs. Norway. On the other hand, Hanuman has been adjudged as the best film in AVGC, which is animation, visual effects, gaming, and comic category, whereas the award for best short film went to Gidh the Scavenger. Not only this, the award for best popular film providing wholesome entertainment has been bagged by Alia Bhatt and Ranveer Singh starrer Rocky Aur Rani Ki Prem Kahani. Bollywood film Sam Bahadur bagged 3 awards, which are Best Costume, Best Makeup, as well as Best Feature Film promoting national, social, and environmental values. 56 awards have been announced across different categories in today's 71st National Film Awards press conference. Deepika Mehto's report for DD India.
So the first National Film Award for the Queen of the Silver Screen, Rani Mukherjee, and for King Khan SRK as well. Well, time now to get you some sporting updates as well. England pace bowler Chris Woakes has been ruled out of the remainder of the decisive 5th test after suffering a shoulder injury on the opening day at the Oval in the test against India. The all-rounder had to leave the field after landing awkwardly on his left shoulder while saving a ball hit to the boundary by Karunaya on Thursday. Woakes looked in visible pain as he walked off the field with his left arm wrapped up in a sweater. Woakes' injury has added to the growing list of concerns for England, with the hosts missing the services of several key players, including captain Ben Stokes, who's been ruled out with a shoulder injury. The All India Football Federation on Friday appointed Khalid Jamil as head coach of the Indian men's national football team. Jamal becomes the first Indian to hold the post since Savio Madeira in 2011 and 2012. Jamil replaces Manolo Marquez, who stepped down last month after a winless tenure that stretched over a year of competitive matches. Born in Kuwait, the 48-year-old has won India's top division both as player and as coach. Most recently, he took over Jamshedpur FC midway through the 2023-24 season, steering the team to the Super Cup semi-finals and later to a runner-up finish and an ISL semi-final spot in the next season. 4-time Formula One world champion Max Verstappen has ended speculation about a move to Mercedes next season by confirming for the first time on Thursday that he will race on with Red Bull. Formula One starts a new engine era next year in a major shake-up that could change the pecking order, with Mercedes expected to lead the way while Red Bull are making their own power until after a split with Honda. Reigning champion Verstappen has known break clauses in his contract, but they have not been triggered, with the 27-year-old third in the standings at the midpoint and with 2 wins from 13 races. And for that, we have to put the brakes on where this edition of DD India Newshour is concerned. But let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. And for those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India's mobile app. It's available on both Android and iOS. Just scan the QR code, download the app. And we'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Gautam Roy, and from all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India Newshour.